This is one we were following very closely. We now know that the suspect accused in the Arkansas hiker murders, has now appeared in court for the first time. If you're just now listening in and haven't been following this story as closely, we do know that those Arkansas authorities say that a peaceful family hike turned into a deadly ambush. This all happened when a 28-year-old school teacher allegedly stabbed a married couple to death in front of their children at Devil's Den State Park. Arkansas police then arrested Andrew James McGann at a barbershop in Springdale earlier this week. McGann was charged with 2 counts of capital murder in connection to those killings of Clinton Brink, who you can see on your screen there, the 43-year-old, and his wife, Kristen Brink, who's 41. The 2 were found dead there on a walking trail, and their daughters, who are 7 and 9, thankfully were not hurt during this encounter. But ultimately, we know that McGann did have that first appearance inside of an Arkansas court yesterday. And to talk a lot more about what comes next in this case, I want to bring in legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. And of course, we know that, again, McGann was there for that preliminary hearing. First, can you sort of explain what happens there in the courtroom for a first hearing like that?
Extremely basic things are sort of what are on tap first and foremost. Typically, what will happen is a defendant will be arraigned. They will understand the charges that are against them. They will understand some of their fundamental rights, their rights to counsel, their right to remain silent if that's not already been explained to them. Sometimes, if bond has not been set, then bond is discussed. In this instance, there was no bond. They're not going to be allowing him to be released to the public, probably, and I'm sure because of his dangerousness. And those are the types of things that are sort of done initially. You've got to remember, a criminal case, the way that it works is whatever incident happens, and then the police have to gather and collect and investigate the incident, the crime. And once that gets together, the lawyers only after all that typically get involved. And here, in this situation, you would think that the lawyers, the DA's office, the prosecutors, you would think that they're probably working in some ways hand in hand. That's not certainly the case in every crime, but high-profile things like this, yes. So formal legal charges, I don't think, have been brought yet. So all of the things that are going forward right now are basically just sort of the rules of the road for the incarceration, for the immediate future, laying the groundwork for future legal proceedings and for his incarceration, or if at some point he does make bond or get bond, how that would work as well.
And so, yeah, it's definitely going to be a process that continues to happen. And what makes this case so interesting is so many people wondered what happened, who did it. There was a manhunt for several days, but I also have some video footage that I want to put up on the screen as well that shows the moment where this man was officially taken into custody. This is the courtesy Brooke Taylor there of Fox News. So also, police said that during his initial questioning, McGann actually confessed to the murders. How does this affect the case going forward? I mean, it's not often that you hear that someone actually confesses during those first initial talks with police.
It's certainly going to make proving the case for the police and the prosecution a lot easier. Now, we don't know in what context that he confessed. He may have claimed some sort of self-defense. He may have admitted to being there or being in some sort of a fight or altercation with these people. So we don't know exactly what that confession comprises of. But you've got a situation where this man is in the woods, where there's no cameras, there's no tapes, there's no videos, there's only eyewitnesses. Maybe we don't know for certain whether the children saw this encounter happen or not. We don't know to what extent they saw it or not. So proving this case would be very, very complicated because you would have to identify him somehow. Now, I also understand they've got DNA evidence in this case, but the fact that he confesses to it and admits to it really eliminates a lot of the whodunit. You look at the Scott Peterson case; there was DNA. In that instance, it's the same situation. You're talking about eyewitness testimony, and if you do have any kind of shred of DNA evidence, does it match? Does it not match? Where was it? Is it possible it was there for some other reason, depending on what it was on? So the fact that you have a confession makes this case far, far easier from the prosecution standpoint.
Well, Jeremy, I have to ask you, could he eventually turn around and then say he was appointed a public defender while he was in court yesterday, but say he was coerced into making any of those statements? Could that change whatever plea is eventually put in?
Sometimes false confessions are are a red flag, and if you watch any documentaries, if you see what the Innocence Project has done, false confessions are a common denominator for bad convictions. They happen, and they happen in a lot of instances because of enhanced interrogation techniques. There's a technique that law enforcement uses called the Reed technique for interrogation. It's come under a lot of fire and criticism for being coercive. There's all sorts of things throughout the history of interrogation, not allowing breaks, not allowing food, not allowing sleep, offering cigarettes, offering food, and so those types of things can be elements and aspects of that. He may have tried to invoke his right of counsel. That could have been overridden. Certainly, his defense team is going to scrutinize this confession, and you would think that the prosecution, that the police, they know that this is coming. They know that this is a high-profile case. If I'm investigating this case, I'm being as antiseptic as possible, and I am just giving this case just the perfect white glove treatment when it comes to admonishing him about his rights, making sure he completely understands these things, because you don't want to lose a case because you didn't do it right on the front end.
And so ultimately, what's truly the tragic portion of this case is that these two people, these two parents, were murdered there in the park, and their two daughters, you've just brought them up, and their role, they may play a very important role in the upcoming trial. If it does go to trial, ultimately, Jeremy, would you expect them, being so young, 7 and 9 years old, to be witnesses on the stand for this?
Tragically, yes. Children, unfortunately, are witnesses in a lot of crimes, not the least of which are child abuse and sexual abuse. I think it's a very big priority and a goal for prosecutors to not put children through that if they don't have to in most circumstances. But the rules of evidence and the law certainly allow for children to testify. And in this instance, what the children say is going to be pretty critical. Because they're going to be the ones that, for whatever they saw and experienced, can really paint a picture of what happened there. There's only so much you can put together through the forensics, through the stab wounds, through whatever other kind of evidence you've got there, footprints, defensive marks, these types of things. So you're going to have to really sort of understand what these children saw. Did they see did they see a road rage type incident? Was the man waiting in wait for some kind of an ambush? What happened? Was this a chance encounter of some sorts? Was it premeditated? Only the children are really going to be able to paint that picture. And so for that reason, I do think there's a high probability that they're going to be brought into this a little more than they ought to. Certainly, these children have been through enough already, far too much than any child should ever have to experience. And you just hope and pray that the scarring that they've experienced is somehow mitigated.
I have to ask you, do you think additional charges could still be filed too on behalf of the children if they did see anything? Because could anything related to that be filed against Andrew McGahn?
In theory, if he did anything to harm the children or something of that nature, then potentially yes. Or if he threatened the children, I believe the state of Arkansas has indicated that they've not taken the death penalty off of the table yet. I don't know that they've specifically said that they're going to seek it here yet. Certainly, a case like this would be appropriate under Arkansas law. Arkansas law provides that if there are multiple victims in a homicide, then they are eligible for the death penalty. So I don't know that you can charge them with anything more severe, but certainly the children and their welfare, I think, are going to be a priority going forward. Now, tragically, that the fact that the children might have to testify in some ways is a bargaining chip for the defense. We just saw Brian Kohberger plead guilty to 4 very brutal homicides, and part of the reasoning for the prosecution in that case was that they didn't want to put the families through any more torture. And in this instance, the defense here can say, listen, we can make this easy. We don't want the children to have to testify either, but we also don't want to agree to a death sentence. So they do have that bargaining chip, whether we like it or not. The defense does have that option here, and the prosecution does have some difficult decisions to make going forward.
Jeremy, I'm glad you brought up, I'm so glad you brought up Koberger because that case still being so fresh on our minds. One piece that was hard for a lot of folks to understand and swallow was the fact that we never understood why Koberger did what he did. The motive portion of that was never laid out in court. That sense of closure didn't exist. Do you think that we would get that in this case? Is there a possibility?
I think it's going to be very similar, and we may get answers, but they just might not be anytime soon. This young man has a moderately troubled history. He bounced around as a teacher from North Texas to Oklahoma. I believe he was relieved of his duties in North Texas due to allegations of inappropriate behavior. If I'm defending him, what I'm looking at is his mental health. I'm looking at why is he behaving the way he's behaving? How did this happen? Was there some type of break from reality? Is there some sociopathy going on here? Is there some schizophrenic behavior going on here? Is there a detachment from reality? Did he understand right from wrong? That's probably the first place that I'm really looking if I'm the defense here. But as far as getting answers go, you would think that the children in this case, I'm sure, have talked to police, relayed what they understand. Hopefully, the police and the law enforcement are doing so in a manner that's constructive and not overly invasive, helping these children have a new life, really. And the defense is going to be curious as to what these children have to say, also. And you would think that that's going to provide you some answers, but I don't know that you're going to get the straight truth ever really from this defendant. I think you very rarely do, but it's going to be a process over time. We'll learn some things probably in the next few weeks about this, and going forward, I think it's going to be a lot like the Koberger case, in which case only time is going to provide us with a lot of these details that I think we all want to understand.
And it is still such a heartbreaking case. Again, as legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal here to help break down the very latest as it pertains to this suspect officially being there in court. Jeremy, anything that I missed? Any other final thoughts before I let you go?
I think we're going to learn a lot of things in the next few weeks. And I'm most curious for two things specifically. Are we going to learn about the children's account? Certainly, it would be very surprising and probably inappropriate for media or anybody else to try to question the children, other than anybody who absolutely has to. I hope that if we do learn something about that, that may paint some pictures. Also, this defendant's mental health. Again, if I'm defending the case, that's absolutely the first place that I'm starting, because you've got DNA evidence, you've got a confession. So we didn't do it is seeming like a harder defense here than it initially started out to be. But I think we're going to learn some things going forward.
And we certainly will. And we appreciate, as always, Jeremy Rosenthal for helping us to break down the very latest. That arraignment is going to be set for August 25th, later this month, for that suspect to be back in court. Jeremy, I appreciate your time as always.
Thank you, Christina.